if flying is for you. And once you get that ultimate feeling of freedom, Ocala Aviation can train you to get your pilot's license. Ocala Aviation also offers commercial flight training for those looking to make a career change and enter the world of commercial aviation. Ocala Aviation is conveniently located at the Ocala International Airport. So if you're ready to start your adventure, stop by or give them a call today. 861-7484. That's 861-7484. You'll be glad you did. I know I am. Ocala Aviation. Call today, 861-7484.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 6 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. A little bit overcast, and temperatures expected to stay mild today with a 50% chance we'll see more rain. We'll see. I haven't... did it rain this morning, Robin? I don't remember.
Yes, it did. It poured
rain
at my place
on
the way in.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. I guess I slept right through it. On the phone is Carl W. Treleaven. I may be mispronouncing his name. He is the author of the book we are going to focus on right now. The book is called The Unexpected Perspective, The Implications of Darwin and the Big Bang for Christians and Everyone Else. Mr. Treleaven is a distinguished Toastmaster, a business executive, a church elder in St. Petersburg. He held, St. Petersburg here in Florida, he held leadership positions with multiple charities, and he's on the air to talk to us about this. It's a never-ending source of interesting conversation when you talk about the Bible and different things about the Bible specifically. Carl Treleaven, first of all, I hope I'm apologizing if I'm mispronouncing your name, but good morning, sir.
Good morning, and no need to apologize because you got it exactly right.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, thank you for being... Are you in St. Petersburg right now?
I am, yes.
Well, thank you for being on the air with us. When it says an elder, I'm never sure what that always means. Are you a pastor of some sort?
No, I'm a layperson, but in the Presbyterian Church, the governance is done between those who are clerics and also by lay people, and I'm an elder. Okay. As a lay person.
Do you know, if I read the Bible, and I have, of course. When, I was brought up as a Christian, and I went to Sunday school as a kid. I'm not a Bible scholar in any way, so I don't want to pretend to be such. But I just basically have the faith of a child. I found a long time ago that if I tried to argue with people who had all these arguments as to why I shouldn't believe, I would say, you know what, I'm just going to believe. You don't have to, but I'm going to, okay? And just leave it at that.
Sure, understandable.
And then get on with my life, because I have to work, I have to fix my car, I have to pay the bills, so okay, let's not argue on this one because I got to get moving. But anyway, but you've looked at this, and in a way, it's very good for somebody like me because it shows, as the title suggests, a different perspective.
That is exactly the idea, and I tried to look at it and try to figure out, well, should Christians believe this? We've been told we ought to believe in the science, and yet on the face of it, at least it looks like the Bible's saying, no, there's a different story. And one of the conclusions I came to is that, first, it's probably reasonable that Christians have been skeptical about this whole thing. But then I also felt, well, we need to come up with some resolution one way or another on the subject. We've been arguing about this for 150 years, and a lot of Christians accept it. A lot of them don't. A lot of them vehemently deny it.
Except what? Except what? The whole story, or just parts of the story?
Well, no. In fact, no. Except the question about, I'm referring to what modern science is saying. And the question is, well, how do you reconcile what you read in the Bible with what modern science is telling us?
Okay.
And that's I should have been more clear. That was really the question.
Well,
and the conclusion.
Go ahead. I have some things I want to say, but I want to hear you first.
Sure. Okay. And part of why I think this is a really important issue is because, after 150 years, the church hasn't come up with a consistent answer on it. And here's where it's been a problem. One is an awful lot of people have left the church over just this particular issue, especially young people. And obviously, the church depends upon bringing young people into it.
Okay, I need to just put down pause just for a second and ask which specific issue are you talking about? The resurrection? Is that the part we're talking about?
No. The question really here it concerns the science question. Is when you read the book of Genesis, do you believe what the words literally say there, or do you believe what modern science is telling us about where humans came from and were we a special creation, or do we evolve somehow? That's what I'm referring to.
Oh, okay. And,
right.
We're at the beginning of the Bible. Okay, so
right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. So as far as are we created? Well, here's my thought on that, and
Sure.
I can't wait to hear yours. If I look at a 2017 Ford sitting in the parking lot, and then I look at the very first Ford that was ever built, I said, wow, this must have evolved,
Right.
But it doesn't mean that there wasn't a creator who created it, and we know who created the car. It was us. It was humans.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the way I look at this is that, in effect, how do you read this in a way that you get the following two things? One is a way that is consistent with what the Bible says, because I believe the Bible is right, but then also is consistent with what modern science says. So how do you reconcile the two of those things?
And that's what you attempt to do in the book.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm all ears. I want to hear how you did this.
Sure.
I want to have this ready in my arsenal every time I get challenged.
All right. Well, the kind of as a background, one of the points I come to is simply this: that maybe Christians have never had a really good reason they ought to want to believe what the modern science tells them, because you read what Genesis says, and it seems inconsistent. People tend to believe things that are consistent with other ideas that they have. So I said, what would have to happen for both the science to be correct and for it to be consistent with the Bible? And the conclusion I come to is somehow people are only going to accept Christians are only going to accept the modern science if it somehow reinforces other things that they already believe. And nobody's ever really given that.
Okay.
And that's really what I come to. And I come up with 5 reasons why Christians really shouldn't just accept it, they ought to love it.
Okay.
In fact, love it more than atheists do.
Okay.
Which is a pretty strong statement. I acknowledge that. But that's really the conclusion I come to.
Okay. All right. So the science, and I know I don't know what I know this is not the topic, but the science seems to say to me that life begins at conception, and yet the people who are saying that life begins at birth, and there's a 9-month period where you're not really alive. I mean, they seem to be okay with abortion, and I know that's not the direction you're going. But if science is what we're going to lean on, then let's lean on it. I mean, and it sounds like you're doing the same thing. You're taking science and leaning on it.
Right. Well, what I'm really trying to say is that the Bible and science are not inconsistent.
I agree.
Okay, and a starting point is simply this: it says, ask this question: is the Bible a science textbook? Now, if the Bible is a science textbook, then you can't reconcile what Darwin and other modern science is saying, because the Bible literally would be saying something different. But a fundamental point, and I say this in chapter 1, is how the Bible is neither a science textbook, and it could never have been intended to be a science textbook. So stop reading the Bible as though it's trying to tell you something about science.
Okay, so you have 5 things that you bring out in the book that helps us connect the two.
It's why we would want to believe Darwin and the Big Bang.
Okay.
Things things about it that reinforce other things Christians already believe and would make them want to embrace the whole idea.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Can you share the 5 things with us?
Sure. Well, the first 2 actually have to do with what Christians actually believe. All right. And I like to ask people the following question: What is the most fundamental doctrine in Christianity? The thing that really distinguishes us from all kinds of other religions?
Okay.
Right. And the answer I come to is the idea of original sin. And Christians have a unique viewpoint on that. It's way back at the beginning of the Bible.
Right.
And the idea goes is that the very first humans, Adam and Eve, were in effect sinned against God.
Right.
And because of that, every person since that time, has also been a sinner.
Okay. Now this does apply to Judaism also. Jews also believe in Genesis. Okay.
That's true.
Or
that's
study
right.
Genesis.
Right. But the difference is most Jews tend to believe that people are sinful, but it's because they choose to sin. They don't quite view it the way Christians do, that it in effect it's somehow innate and passed down to us from Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Right. So here's the question I ask: is if that's the case, how is it that something people who lived maybe 100, 200,000 years ago, how did that get to you and me? Why is it that we're burdened with it? It's what you would refer to as sort of the mechanism of transmission. How did it get transmitted to us? And Christians don't really have a good, satisfying explanation for that. And my answer is that Darwin's theory actually provides a very robust explanation for that process.
Okay.
And I explain that in the book.
Now,
so based on that, Christians ought to love it. So,
okay. Now Darwin's theory does not hold up scientifically when you look at DNA, which Darwin had no clue about.
Well, I think it actually does. It's I don't see a disconnect there.
Okay, well, you're the expert. I'm not. I always heard that the DNA of a human being is not the same as the DNA of a chimpanzee or any other primate.
No, actually, it's there. All of us have the very same DNA. It's all goes down to the same basic four parts: A, T, C, and G. It comes together, and if you look at virtually any organism, it has similar DNA to us. In some cases, it's very exact. And most animals out there, we share an awful lot of DNA. I mean, we even share DNA with things like yeast.
Okay.
So
I heard wrong. So I heard wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
So the DNA is the same, which means that, going back to my car metaphor, the steel that made the Model T could also be used to make the F-20, or what is it called?
Absolutely.
Whatever that car is outside. Yeah. Right. The building blocks could be the same, but they're still a builder.
Right. Okay. And I'm not denying that. The argument I make is that we could take all the exact science that an atheist would believe in, with one critical distinction, and that is what came before the Big Bang. In other words, the idea is the Big Bang occurred about 13.8 billion years ago, when, in effect, the universe came into existence. All right. Well, the question is, what caused the Big Bang? What came before it? Now, there's no way to prove that scientifically. It's a matter of faith. The atheist believes that generally that it just kind of happened, or that matter has always existed. Not a really strong argument.
Right.
The Christian says, hey, the author of all that was God.
Right.
None of us can prove it one way or another. It's just we believe by faith that that's what happened. And then everything evolved, and then we get to the second key point, which is when humans first appeared. And the Bible refers to that as the Garden of Eden.
Okay, now just stop right there. Let's look at the science of this.
Okay.
Let's stick with the whole Darwin thing that we evolved somehow. Just going along with what you're trying to say.
Right.
If there was a specific two beings, the Adam and Eve, that were somehow now different than their predecessors, the DNA does change slightly. I mean, there is a slight difference in the DNA between a human and an ape. And that might have been the God moment where he said, you know what, I'm done with this hairy thing. I'm going to make something else, and I'm going to change the DNA just a tweak, and I'm going to give people I'm going to make something called people. I mean, is that possible?
Right. Well, it's certainly possible, and Christians who believe in Darwin's theory would say, when all is said and done, God could have created the world any way He wanted to. A million different possibilities.
Right.
We just happen. The science, though, suggests this is the way it actually happened. Is that everything evolved from prior species through the process of evolution, and at some point in time, some new species emerged. Ultimately, one called Homo sapiens, which is us.
Right.
And the thing that really made us different, or makes us different than all these other species, is the fact that we have much bigger brains. We've evolved a much bigger, more sophisticated brain.
Right.
And our brain has the following capabilities. Well, we've developed consciousness to a level that other animals don't have. We also have the capacity to understand the difference between right and wrong. We also have what's called agency, which means that, in effect, we can make choices to do things. And finally, and most importantly, we can know that something is right or wrong and consciously choose to do the wrong thing. Right. And that's really what the Garden of Eden was about. In effect,
that's true.
Memorializing the first time, in effect, you have this new species called Homo sapiens, as represented by Adam and Eve, and they in fact did that.
I would like to interject this. That
sure.
the whole Bible does not focus on creation. It just, the very beginning of it does. But the bulk of the Bible, and I would argue 98% of the New Testament, focuses on how to live, how to treat one another, and to have faith in God, to have faith so that you do say, okay, I'm going to have that baby. I don't have enough money. I don't know how God's going to help me with this, but rather than giving into our fears, we have faith in God, and then we move forward. That's 98% of the New Testament, and probably most of the whole Bible. I would agree. Which is an important message, maybe even more important than trying to figure out whether there was or was not a Big Bang.
Oh, certainly with respect to that, I would agree. The point I make, and why I think the Garden of Eden is so important, is because suddenly you have this new species that's while it's 99% the same DNA, exact same DNA as others, we've got these new capabilities that nobody else has, and those capabilities have caused us to develop the ability to sin. Now, the point I make in the book is Adam and Eve sinned. The thing we don't talk so much about is God's response to that. Now, God could have said, hey, this universe I've created is way bigger than this one location. I'm out of here. And some people, in effect, say that. That's really what deists believe. In effect, they say that, hey, God created the earth, but He doesn't do anything anymore. He's completely absent. But Christians believe as God's response was, hey, I'm going to get actively involved with this species called Homo sapiens.
I think so.
And the whole Bible is... The whole Bible's really about that, and that becomes the why of Jesus.
I think if you're comparing things scientifically and using DNA as a backup for what you're trying to say, then and if you define sin as disobeying God's commandments, God made no commandments to the animal kingdom, and therefore the very things we do that are considered sins are being done by the animals too.
In fact, they are now, and I actually mentioned that in the book. If you go and look in the animal kingdom, look, for example, at monkeys. And monkeys actually do things like try to deceive, others. And they steal things.
Yeah.
Now, this is a point I make in the book: is that other lower animals do some of the same kind of stuff that we do. We don't think they have consciousness of it. They do it because it helps them survive.
Okay, but whether you believe or not that stealing is a sin or not, it's still anybody, whether they believe in God or not, would agree that in order for us to improve, to become better as people, we have to respect one another, and by respect, we're going to keep our hands to ourselves. We're going to, we're not going to get into wars if we ever could figure out how to stop that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, see, that actually leads into one of the other key points about this, and here's the argument that I make: is that, as you pointed out, lower level animals, in effect, sin just as we do. They do some bad things. They do it, of course, because it helps them survive. And here's the argument that I make: is that humans have do these very same things to survive. There's just one critical difference. We've developed big enough brains and consciousness to understand what's wrong about those things. So we know that stealing is wrong, and yet sometimes we still do it.
And that was what maybe God didn't want us to know, the difference between good and evil. That's what the Genesis says, right? We ate from the tree of good and knowledge of good and evil.
Well, the argument I make is this: that's sort of a a literary way to describe what actually happened. And what's actually happened is this idea that sin is really the byproduct of our evolution. So if you look at every typical type of sin, you can think of it like a coin with a head and a tail. Well, the head is the positive side of the behavior, which helps you survive. The tail is the negative side.
If ultimately the plan of God is to create this race of beings that is perfect, that we're perfection, then we're still on our way there. If God created the earth in everything in 7 days, and we're still in the seventh day, then He's still creating us. We're not done yet. He's still creating. He's still creating us.
We're still evolving. Right.
Yeah.
We're still evolving.
Right.
But the argument I'm making here is that if you follow the science, in effect, we've evolved to this particular point.
Right. Well,
we have the capability to do good things, but we're all walking around with this baggage.
Scientifically, we're almost out of time. I just want to say one thing. Scientifically, sure. I think the whole forgiveness of sins by Jesus' sacrifice, that actually makes sense scientifically speaking, and it does trace back to the original sin being transmitted to us all through DNA. I love this conversation, Carl. Thank you so much for being on the air with us. TheUnexpectedPerspective.com is the website. I found the book on Amazon, real easy. Carl W. Treleaven, thank you so much for being on the air with us.
Well, thank you very much, Larry and Robin. I've certainly enjoyed talking with you.
Great conversation. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Senators on the Intelligence Committee getting their chance to grill the former FBI director and his conversation with the president. James Comey in his prepared opening statement saying the president directly pushed him to lift the cloud of investigation into the probe in Russian election meddling.
Separately, Comey will also detail how he says the president demanded loyalty from him in a January 27th one-on-one dinner here at the White House, and later in mid-February in the Oval Office asked for Comey to end the investigation into the then National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
Fox's Blake Berman at the 2017 CMT Awards, an opening act tribute to the late Greg Allman.
As Jason Aldean, Darius Rucker, Charles Kelly, and Derek Trucks all performed Midnight Rider.
Fox's Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News. We report, you decide.
Napa know-how. Ever wish you could have your own walk-up music? Napa has the rugged Bluetooth speaker on sale for $29.99. It's portable and waterproof, which means you can play walk-up music anywhere. Showing up to a party? Walk-up music. Doing a sweet cannonball? Walk-up music. The rugged Bluetooth speaker at Napa for $29.99 makes everything cooler. That's Napa know-how. Napa know-how. At participating Napa Auto Parts stores while supplies last. Offer expires 6/30/17.
There are two things every parent wants when their child goes to college. For their child to do well and a way to afford it. Now, with Discover Student Loans, parents can have the best of both worlds. Not only do our loans cover up to 100% of school-certified costs with zero fees, but we'll give them a cash reward for each new student loan if they earn at least a 3.0 GPA or equivalent. That means every A in history or B in math could help them earn a cash reward for good grades. Just one of the many ways we treat you like you'd treat you. Apply now in 15 minutes or less at discoverstudentloans.com. Limitations apply.
You've got a garden and we've got a show for you.